What's up, guys, and welcome to the Team Member Perspective Podcast Training Show. My name is Coulter. I'm your host, and we are on part 6 of 7 of our sales process series for team members. If you're a team member listening to this and you want to sell more insurance in a predictable way, this series is for you. And, if you're just tuning in, I would suggest going back to part 1 and going through each of these parts. I believe that each of these parts to this series allow us to become top producers, allow us to find consistency in our production. And, in my experience, if one of these areas is lacking, or if there's not enough focus put in one of these areas, your production could potentially suffer. So all of these pieces that we're talking about in the sales process series congruently work together to allow us to find consistency, to allow us to sell at the level that we want to sell at, not just this month, but next month and consistently for the full year. So today, part 6 of 7, we are talking about follow-up, okay? As a quick recap of this series so far, part 1 was all about finding. In order for you to sell more insurance, you got to find people to sell it to. The second part was all about getting people's attention. You can find all the people in the world. If you can't get their attention, nothing's going to happen. So you got to get their attention. Part 3 was all about presentation, helping customers understand why they would want what you're pitching them rather than just telling them that they need it, right? Bringing value to the conversation, value that matters to the customer, not just to us as insurance professionals. And part 4 was all about closing, being able to close more insurance, being able to learn how to move through objections, but how to close more insurance is what we talked about in part 4. And part 5 was all about review appointments and getting in front of our customers, getting in front of our prospects more and in a very systematic way. Because I believe if we can spend more of our day in front of people, presenting to people, selling to people, and less of our time in our day trying to get these people to sell to and get in front of people, we're going to sell more, okay? And, in those review appointments, you can really start to systematize more premium. And so now we're going to talk about part 6 of 7, which is all about follow-up. I believe that in the insurance world, we're in a follow-up business. And I believe that most team members don't follow up or follow up enough. But I also believe that team members are following up, but they're almost just checking boxes to just say that they're following up. They're not following up in a way that's compelling. And so today I want to talk about a few different principles that I believe will allow you to follow up more effectively and close more policies. Because I do believe that the fortune is in the follow-up. And so follow-up. There's a theme that we're going to be taking on in our group, the Team Member Perspective, this year. And it's for Fridays. And we're going to treat Fridays as follow-up Fridays. Don't close your week until you've closed your week. Go back with all the opportunities that you created for the week and just touch base with these people. Follow up with these people. And finish what you started on Fridays. Finish the week. Follow-up Fridays. Okay, so I want to get a little bit more specific into okay, Coulter, I get it. We need to follow up, but how do we follow up effectively? Okay, but first, I'm going to look up a few follow-up statistics in sales because I think this is very interesting. I think this tells a story. As I go through these statistics, I would encourage you to kind of identify where you're at. I say it all the time, but I believe that the first step to any sort of improvement in our production is self-awareness. We got to know what we're doing and what we're not doing. Hopefully this is telling for you and allows you to know kind of where to focus. Okay. And so here's some statistics, and you've maybe have heard some of these, but again, I believe that this tells a story. We're in the follow-up business. The fortune is in the follow-up, but are you following up? 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. That is half. It's crazy. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. 12% make 3 contacts and stop, and only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. So where do you fall there? You quote a new household, you don't close them. Are you following up once, twice, 3 times, or more than 3 times? For a life insurance conversation that you start, you pivot to life insurance. The customer shows some sort of interest, but they don't buy. Are you following up with them 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, or possibly more than 3 times? Because if you're not, that might be just where you need to focus. You just need to do the work. You can't expect to get results from the work that you don't do. And these tell a story. 48% of people, over half of us team members, are not following up with a prospect or the household that we quote, or a life policy that we quote, a health policy that we quote, umbrella policy that we quote, where they don't buy. More than half of us are not following up. 25% only do 2 and stop. 12%, only make 3, and then only 10% of us. So 1 out of 10 of us team members is only following up, more than 3 times, which is very interesting. Okay, now I think this next piece tells more of a story and illustrates the importance of follow-up. 2% of sales are made on the first contact. Only 2% of, sales will be made on the first contact. 3% on the second, 5% on the third, 10% on the fourth, 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. Okay, so I think first and foremost, are you following up? Number 1. And then number 2, are you following up enough? I would just implement that in and figure out a way to have 7 to 12 touches in your follow-ups. Now, it's very interesting in this industry and in sales, when we think about following up 12 times, most of us think like, there's no way. That is going to just bug the customer. I don't want to be viewed in that way. I don't want people to think that I'm this pushy, buggy salesperson. Like, I don't want that on my reputation. And so most of us don't follow up 12 times, even though the numbers say that we should. I like to kind of understand that a little bit more. Like, why, number 1, like, I get it. Like 12 times seems a little overwhelming. It seems like, I don't want to be that pushy salesperson either. I don't want people to think about me in that way and that like, oh, Colter's just that type of a salesperson. I don't like that. I don't want to invite that sort of resistance into my life or into my conversations with my customers or prospects. However, I understand the importance of follow-up. So I want to teach you a couple things about the different types of follow-up and what follow-up actually means. I believe that follow-up sometimes is less about a hard call to action. Like, hey, Colter, what do you think? Do you want to do this? Hey, Colter, what are your thoughts about doing this? Hey, Colter, did you want to go ahead and get this started? Like, that is a very direct, linear follow-up. And I think that most of us, when we're thinking about follow-up, that's the only follow-up that we're typically doing. The direct, linear follow-up is basically saying, hey, make a decision with me. Right? And I think because that is typically the only follow-ups that most team members are doing, thinking about doing that 7 to 12 times just doesn't really feel that great. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. For me, it just doesn't really feel like it would be that effective. Again, I think the numbers are important, following up at least, 7 to 12 times and incorporating that into your process. But I think the way that we're following up maybe matters a little bit more. So I would encourage you, I want you to think about this in regards to like, instead of just checking boxes just to follow up because, if I follow up 7 to 12 times, I'm going to close more policies. Although that might be true, let's work a little bit smarter. Let's have our follow-ups go further for us. Let's set up our follow-ups in a way where we can be confident in following up and not feel like we're going to be known as this pushy salesperson that just doesn't leave people alone and doesn't just stop following up, right? We don't want that. We want to balance this between following up enough, but also having our follow-ups work more for us. One of the follow-ups I want to introduce to you that maybe you haven't thought of is, instead of just a direct linear follow-up, we can actually incorporate a non-linear or non-direct follow-up as well. We can mix, our follow-ups up between direct and linear follow-ups and non-direct, non-linear follow-ups, okay? So a direct follow-up, we've kind of identified, it's a very hard call to action. Do you want to make this decision? Do you want to move forward now? A non-linear or non-direct follow-up, it's going to be less of a hard call to action, and there may not even be a call to action, but it's more of like maybe providing more information. Maybe keeping you top of mind for the customer, keeping that conversation top of mind that you had with them about life insurance. So it's not necessarily a hard call to action, but it might just be, providing some more information. Maybe it's a link to a Google review page of some customer that you helped in the same way that you're trying to help this customer. Maybe it's a link to a page where it explains a little bit more about the product that you're trying to talk to them about. Maybe it's a link to some video that could educate them on a product, okay? Maybe it's a reminder You see what I'm saying is like the follow-up it can be considered like a touch. Not like do you want to do this right now? It's just like a touch. You want to stay in their mind. You want to remind them about the conversation that you had. Just because you're following up doesn't mean you have to have this direct, hard call to action in every follow-up. It would get overwhelming. Your customer would not like that. Your prospect would not like that. You're going to invite sales resistance into your relationship with them, and they may not buy. They may, be conditioned to just put you off and not respond because they don't want to feel like they're being sold to, because all you're doing is direct linear follow-ups. Do you want to do this? What do you think? Should we get this started? Right? Like, if I get a quote with you for my auto insurance and my homeowner's insurance and I feel that I'm being sold to in that way, it might cause me to want to just emotionally close off and honestly just ghost you because I don't want to be sold to. I know what is available with you. I don't want to be sold to, okay? But I'm also not thinking about that conversation or those quotes that you gave me all the time. I'm not thinking about that life conversation that you had with me last week to pay off my mortgage because I'm busy with my life. I'm trying to work and grow a business. I'm trying to take care of a family, be a father of 2. I'm trying to keep up with everything, keep my relationship strong with my wife and, keep up with all the hard work, snow, shoveling snow. Like, I've got a lot going on in my life. That what's not in my mind as much as you might think is in my mind is that life conversation we had last Tuesday. I'm not thinking about that. And so there is this element, there's this balance that I think we can find between following up enough, but not in a way that invites sales resistance into this conversation or this relationship, and in a way that can actually move things forward. And I think it's, incorporating a mix of direct linear follow-ups and non-direct, non-linear follow-ups into your follow-up system. Okay, but I do believe that we should be following up anywhere from 7 to 12 times, 7 to 12 touches to give ourselves the best shot at winning. Okay. And so, that is one thing that I feel will help a lot of us start to follow up more and help our customers move forward or help people make decisions so that we're spending our time in the places where we're going to get the most out of it. So incorporate some sort of non-direct and direct follow-ups into your follow-up system so that you can get to those 7 to 12 touches, because I still think that that's very important. Let's talk a little bit about kind of some more tactical things of how can we have our follow-ups go further for us? How can we be more effective in our follow-ups? Like, what can we do to be effective in our follow-ups? And so here are a couple things that I think are important. Number one is start with the end in mind. What is the end goal of your follow-up? Is it to remind your customer because it's been a couple of days and you haven't heard back from them when they said they would reach back out? Is it to schedule an appointment? Is it to close the policy? Is it to remind them or to send them a resource? What's the end goal of your follow-up? Start with the end in mind. Next thing is a little prep work goes a long way. Before you just pick up the phone and call and follow up with these people, maybe try to go and figure out for example, let's say that you start a life conversation, you went through a quoting process with one of your customers, but they didn't buy. Well, that's been 6 months ago. And you somehow were reminded to give them a call and to follow up with them because there was interest there. And so before you just call those people, do some prep work. Go get familiar with their experience with your agency and with their policies since you last talked with them. Go look at opportunities. Go look at notes. Go look and see, what their bill has done and how it's trending. Go and see if there's any potential discounts that they might be missing out on. And what happens is a lot of that, you can basically treat this as if you can put arrows in your quiver for your follow-ups. So when you call and you're following up with people, you can actually provide some value rather than it just being this follow-up conversation. You have things to use in this follow-up if you do your prep work. So a little prep work can go a long way. Okay. And that brings up another point, right? The follow-up will change depending on when the last time you spoke with this customer prospect was. Obviously, if I'm following up with you and we had a conversation 8 months ago, my follow-up with that might be different than if I talked to you about life insurance last week and you said that you're going to talk to your spouse over the weekend and I'm calling you today on Monday. The way that we follow up with each of those situations is different. What has helped me is to really try to put myself in the customer's shoes and think about how, I would want to be followed up with, and in what way would a follow-up help me want to move this forward and want to make a decision. Instead of thinking like in regards to like what we think about follow-up, what do our customers, put ourselves in their shoes. And if you were to be called and followed up with, what's going to help you move forward? What's going to help you make that decision? Okay, so a little prep work's going to go a long way. Now, in your follow-ups, take the lead and lead them. Insurance is this, it's very misunderstood. People don't understand their coverages. They don't understand the importance of them. They just don't really understand insurance. And so a lot of the times we're waiting for them to take the lead, but in all reality, we should be the ones taking the lead. We should be leading them onto the logical next step. And again, when you start with the end in mind with each specific scenario, you're going to know what that next step is. Is it to close the policy? Is it to submit an application? Is it to schedule an appointment? Is it to, like, what is the end goal of that specific follow-up with that specific person? When you know that, then you're able to take the lead and you want to actually lead them forward. Now, the next thing is in our follow-ups, what we want to do is we want to assume that these people don't remember anything. We want to assume that these people don't remember, that they don't remember the conversation that we had with them, that they don't remember why they might want this coverage. We basically want to sell again. So in our follow-ups, when we're calling them, we want to make sure that we're helping them understand the value behind the product again. We don't want to just call and say, hey, I'm just calling to see what you thought about this. We want to start and say, hey, if you remember correctly, or if you remember, we talked about this product that would do this for you, and this is how your family would benefit. We want to do that selling again. Because again, people aren't thinking about this life insurance conversation that you had with them a week ago. Like, they're busy enough with their life. And so instead of assuming that they remember, we want to assume that they don't remember, and we want to sell them again. Early on, just in your follow-ups in general, we want to get the customer to results-based thinking. We want to get the customer to remember what this stuff will do for them and how the customer and how the customer's family will benefit. Once we can get them to results-based thinking, it helps them, want to move that forward. People aren't buying life insurance because it's a life insurance policy. People aren't buying an umbrella policy because it's an umbrella insurance policy. They're buying what the policy is going to do for them. And so in our follow-ups, assuming they don't remember anything and we're going to have to sell again, we want to get them to results-based thinking as quickly as we possibly can, because the end result of what that product or that coverage is going to do for them, not the product or coverage itself. And here's a simple framework that you can use in your follow-ups that I think is helpful. I believe in frameworks. I think that us team members, when we have kind of the recipe of what elements we want to include in the conversation, in that follow-up, it allows us to have confidence in that conversation because it allows us to know where to go next. And so here is a simple framework that you can use in your follow-ups to follow up more, but follow up more effectively. Okay, so the first thing is your opening. You want to know your opening. I'm going to talk about that quick, but after your opening, the second thing is you want to bring value, right? Remind and recap the value. The third thing is we want to give an offer. And then the fourth thing is we want to call to action to a degree. Now, again, this is going to be more of the direct linear follow-up, whereas your indirect follow-up may not have to follow this exact framework. It could be as simple as, hey, here's that article I was telling you about, or hey, check out this Google review page for more information about what we talked about, right? It doesn't have to include this framework, but in your direct follow-ups and linear follow-ups, this is a framework that I think is very helpful. Opening, value, offer, and call to action. Okay, so with your opening, we cannot close a deal unless we can open it effectively. A lot of you team members are essentially not getting anywhere in your follow-ups because of how you're doing your opening. Your opening is triggering some sort of sales resistance. Your customers are going to the fight or flight part of their brain. They're trying to get you off the phone as quickly as possible because they feel some sort of pressure. They feel like they have to make a decision right now, and they're not even remembering why they should. And so they're kind of tuning you out based on your opening. Know your opening. And the way that we want to do that is, really we want to avoid the words follow up. We want to avoid any sort of words or phrases that could trigger some sort of sales resistance in our customers or prospects' minds. Because the moment they feel like they're being sold to, they're going to try to get you off the phone. I mean, think about you. Like if you feel like you're being sold to and there's that pressure that's coming in, you're going to try to get them off the phone as well. So in your opening, we want to think about that. We don't want to say the words, hey, that's just Colter following up with you, or I'm just circling back or checking in with you. You know, I know we talked about life insurance a few weeks back. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Like that's not a very good opening. Instead, we want to avoid those words that could trigger that sales resistance. And we also want to almost in a way raise our status. We want to help the customer in their mind view us as a person that is a professional, one that is busy, one that is in control. And the words that we use matter. Our opening actually helps them establish a frame about us that's going to help us, or it's going to, maybe limit us. Now, I'm just following up with you. That's going to be one that's going to limit you, right? You're going to trigger early sales resistance. You're going to trigger these objections in their customers' minds, and you're probably not going to sell a lot of policies if you're following up with like that. Because follow-up, people don't want to be sold to. They don't want to be followed up with. So how can we tweak that? Well, you can just use this phrase here. Hi, Cindy, it's just Colter getting back to you. Instead of I'm just following up with you, I'm just getting back to you. Because that will imply that I've been busy. I'm busy. I've got a busy schedule. I'm busy doing what? Well, I'm busy closing deals. It's going to raise your status without having to do anything. And it's going to actually prevent objections from coming up because they're not going to feel like they're being sold to. The words that we use matter. Hi, Cindy, it's just Colter getting back to you. Now, what we want to do is we want to recap, right? We want to recap our conversation. We want to remind them of the value. Looks like we talked a few weeks back about some possible concerns with your mortgage if something were to happen to you, so that David and the kids could keep the house. Did you give up on that, or what actually happened? So let's break that down a little bit, okay? We want to recap the value. People aren't going to buy life insurance because it's a life insurance policy. They're going to buy it for what it does for them, the benefits. And so we want to recap and remind them, hey, looks like we talked a few weeks back. And I like to follow up on the problem, not the product. What is the problem that your product will solve? Well, in this case, if I talk to Cindy about her homeowner's policy and she's got a mortgage, I probably talked to her about life insurance to pay this mortgage off. And so I don't want to follow up on life insurance. I want to follow up on the problem. Hey, if we talked a few weeks back about some possible concerns. I like to use neutral language in these follow-ups as well. It keeps sales resistance out of the conversation. About some possible concerns with your mortgage if something were to happen to you, so that David and the kids could keep the house. Did you give up on that, or what happened? Okay, I love that question, because when people have a very hard time saying, oh yeah, I gave up on that, and you're just asking like, did you give up on that, or what happened? It's going to cause them to engage with you and basically tell you where they're at without triggering all this sales resistance. Okay, so as a recap, hey Cindy, it's just Colter getting back to you. Getting back to you is important. Looks like we talked a few weeks back, remind them, about some possible concerns with your loan on your F-150, about some possible concerns with your income going away if you were not around anymore. Okay, see that? We're following up on the problem. But what impact would that problem have on the people that they love? So that spouse and kids could keep the house, so that spouse and kids wouldn't have to have this added financial burden of this loan, like on top of trying to deal with losing you, so that David could be emotionally strong for the kids on top of trying to deal with losing you without having an added financial burden of having to worry about the bills. Okay, so we're reminding them of what it does for them. And I think following up on the problem helps you do that. And then at the end, we're just putting it out there. Did you give up on that, or what happened? And so in your follow-ups, if it's a direct linear follow-up, and again, it depends. I can't reiterate this enough and say this enough. I believe that it depends on the situation. Like, when was the last time that you spoke with these people, and what did you speak with them about, and in what way? Because you want to keep that congruent in your follow-ups as well, okay? But here's the simple framework. Opening, value, offer, call to action. That framework will allow you to have your follow-ups go further for you and close more business from all of these opportunities that you started, that you created, that maybe you forgot about, or maybe that's in your pipeline that you can now move down this pipeline and closer to the close. Follow-up is super important. We need to be following up enough, but we also want to be smart and have our follow-ups actually do something for us rather than just check boxes. So I appreciate you guys. If you found that this was helpful, my only ask is to share it with your agent friends. Share it with your team member friends that you feel like might benefit, because that's how we grow. That's my only ask. If there was value, if there's something from this episode send it off to a team member friend or an agent friend that you feel might benefit. That would mean the world to me. And make sure that you're subscribed, like for more. We will be finishing up this sales process series with part 7 of the series in our next video. Look forward to seeing you then. Take care.